There you go. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This week is National Police Week, a time to recognize the men and women who put the badge on and run towards danger while the rest of us can be at peace throughout the day and the evening. A time to honor the officers who gave and paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect our communities. This year alone, 111 names will be added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, sadly bringing the total to more than 24,700 officers honored there. Each name represents a life cut short, a family forever changed, and a community that will never be the same. And that sacrifice lives on in those who continue to serve. So I'm honored to be standing alongside members of Congress who served in law enforcement and officers from across the country who are here in our nation's capital. And let me start by just saying thank you. Let's be clear about one thing up front. We back the blue, we uphold law and order, and we fight for safer communities. And we support the very people on this stage who do that for us. And we believe that the men and women who enforce our laws deserve respect, support, and ultimately all of the tools that they need to do their jobs, to return safely home to their family. Because public safety isn't complicated, but there is a lot of common sense that goes on with it. And when it comes to public safety, the priority should always be clear: supporting law enforcement, protecting victims, and ensuring accountability. Because we've seen what happens when that focus is lost. Communities become less safe. Repeat offenders cycle back through the system and back on the streets. And the very people who rely on us to keep us safe are asked to do more and more with less support. And that, frankly, is not a recipe for success or safety. That's not the direction that we should be going. We should be focused on policies that make a real difference, supporting law enforcement, strengthening penalties for violent criminals, and making sure criminals, not communities, bear the consequences. Republicans are working to make sure that the police officers are protected in the streets from ambushes and those seeking to do harm against law enforcement. And we should also be focused on something that hits home for these officers standing beside me here, and that's their paycheck. Law enforcement doesn't clock out at the end of the day. It doesn't end when 5 o'clock comes and the end of their shift comes. It's long hours, it's overtime, it's missed holidays, it's time away from your families. That's why efforts like no tax on overtime matters, because if we're serious about backing the blue, it has to show up, and it has to show up in their paychecks too. If you're working overtime to keep our communities safe, you shouldn't be punished with higher taxes. You should be rewarded with bigger paychecks. That seems like a pretty good incentive to me. Now, I want to take a moment to actually remind everyone what this job really looks like, because it's not just what you see on the news. Earlier this year in Imlay City, Michigan, an officer from my district responded to a call that he thought was a routine call, but it was anything but that. Officer Robert Velasco arrived to find a young mother in labor. No time to wait for EMS, so he stepped in. In a matter of minutes, he delivered the baby girl safely, but there was one little problem. The umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. Again, he jumped right into action and saved her life. And that little girl is alive today because a police officer showed up and did whatever was necessary to make sure that that family was safe. That's what the badge represents. And at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to. We stand with the men and women who protect our communities. Police officers are heroes, and not always in the way one expects. They help in our worst moments, and they stand guard every single day so the rest of us can feel safe. To the officers here today and across this country, we are grateful and we thank you. We are with you, and we will always have your back. But before I turn this over, I want to say one thing. Please keep all of our fallen officers in your thoughts and prayers. And they are not alone. They've left families back to also who have to pay the ultimate price. So thank you again for what you do. God bless our law enforcement officers. And with that, I want to turn it over to the co-chairman, the caucus co-chairman, Chairman Rutherford. I'm going to move my box.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I really appreciate you calling us together here to recognize the sacrifice of so many law enforcement officers across this country. I'm going to start with this. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence and disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. That is the opening line of the Law Enforcement Officers Code of Ethics, a code every officer whose name is etched into that National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, they lived by and they died by. Sadly, a staggering total of 363 names were added to the wall this year alone. Of those names were the 111 officers killed in the line of duty in 2025. That's 111 too many. Each of those fallen officers said goodbye to their family, put on a gun and a badge to protect and serve their community, not knowing if they would return home. Our officers stand as a shield between the vulnerable public that they vowed to protect and those out there who would do them harm. As a law enforcement officer for over 40 years, including 12 years as sheriff, I dedicated my life to protecting and serving my Northeast Florida community alongside some of the finest men and women in our community. Anyone who has worked in law enforcement knows that the loss of a loved one, a colleague, a friend in the line of duty changes you forever. I still remember and grieve the 26 heroes that lost their lives during my service with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. We owe every fallen officer and their families a deep, deep gratitude. And I ask all of us, all of you, to live your lives worthy of that sacrifice. With that, I yield back, and I'm proud to introduce my good friend, Sheriff Troy Nails from Texas.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, everyone. What an honor it is to be here. Obviously, celebrating National Police Week, that's what it is. I'm proud to be joined here today by 4 officers from my district who serve at the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Andriana Fernandez, Deputy Michelle Wajardo, Deputy Darren Paul, and Sergeant Mercedes Flores. I want to thank you for being here with us. Had an honor to serve in law enforcement for nearly 30 years, not 40, but 30. With 8 of those as the sheriff of Fort Bend County, Texas, a great, great county, southwest Houston. And through the career in law enforcement, I've had the pleasure of serving alongside many brave men and women who are devoted to protecting and defending our communities and upholding the rule of law. Every day, law enforcement officers from across the country leave the safety of their homes, they kiss their spouse and tell their families goodbye, and they put their lives on the line to do a job that doesn't get the support it rightfully deserves. Too many law enforcement officers have lost their lives in the line of duty. And outside of my office, I started an officer memorial wall to serve as a reminder of those who have given their lives in service to their communities. But sadly, folks, I am quickly running out of space to memorialize the brave heroes we have lost. In 2025, 111 federal, state, county, and municipal law enforcement officers lost their lives in the line of duty. That's 111 families, 111 families that are grieving today as we stand here. We as a nation, we should wrap our arms around the men and women in blue. They have dedicated themselves to protecting their communities from the criminals and the bad actors, often without the recognition they deserve. National Police Week serves as an opportunity for all of us to reflect on the men and women who serve their communities at all levels. And this week, a great week, we should all show appreciation to and honor those who have put service over self. And to the men and women in blue, thank you for your selfless service. May God watch over you and your families, and God bless this great country. I now recognize a wonderful individual, Mr. Pete Staubert from the state of Minnesota.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Pete Staubert. I served 23 years in law enforcement, not 40, not 30, but 23 great years. And National Police Week is something that is near and dear to our hearts. Those of us who have worn the uniform, those of us who have answered the call, and we don't get to choose what calls we go on. We have to be trained for those calls that may come upon our way. We don't get to say, no, we're not going. When there's a bump in the night, when there's a car crash, when there's a homicide, we go. Code 3, we want to bring peace to the situation. We want to be able to provide the best service in sometimes the most darkest hours of an individual's life. And to the police officers across this nation, know and understand that we will have your backs at every step of the way, because it doesn't end at the end of your shift. It doesn't end at the end of that payday. Sometimes it takes years to get over some of these calls for service. The mental health, the strain that is put on these men and women that go and answer every single call for service. We cannot underestimate the stress. And that brings me to the great people of this nation. Please respect and honor our men and women in uniform and adhere to their lawful order. They deserve that respect, and there will be mutual respect given back. 111 new names are on the wall, the officers' memorial wall. Every single one of them is unnecessary, didn't have to happen. The grieving families, the young children. As was said, when we put on the uniform, when we put on the bullet-resistant vest, we expected to come home. There were 111 that didn't come home. And we all thought they would have, and the families thought they would have. So as we celebrate National Police Week and we honor and mourn those officers that left us and their families, never forget, law enforcement is an honorable and noble profession and always will be. These men and women are the first lines of defense for our communities. My time in uniform may be over, but my watch will never end. I will always defend the police, those that defend us across this great nation. And it is my pleasure now to introduce Representative Clay Higgins from the great state of Louisiana.
Thank you, brother. Thank you guys for being here. You know, Police Week kind of sneaks up on us every year emotionally. Those of us that are honored to be a brother of the Thin Blue Line, we know Police Week's coming. And we got thousands of our brothers and sisters coming to D.C. and and tons of events. But the impact of being with those families and those men and women in uniform, and the range of emotions that we all experience is something that you every year you just get reminded of what beautiful families represent the thin blue line across the country. I mean, to be at an event where a group of your brothers and sisters are feeling very patriotic and uplifted and proud and like in service to God and their fellow man and joyous, you know, you sense that and 20 feet away there's a 13-year-old just sobbing, and you know that without even meeting that kid, that's a young man or young lady that lost his mama or daddy in uniform. So, some of us continue to wear the badge one way or another throughout our life, and we're honored to consider ourselves brothers of the thin blue line. That doesn't go away. So for some of us, Police Week is really every week. But on the other hand, we're also human. And we have a tendency to set aside, like, the peaks of emotion and understanding that are revealed to us again in the midst of the turmoil of our life and our effort to push legislation and represent we the people and do our best to seek what is right in a particular debate or legislative endeavor. In the midst of that noise, Police Week surfaces and reminds us of what it is to wear the badge and how deep our love is for our fellow man and how unwavering the commitment of the men and women that wear a uniform and a badge across our country, how unwavering their dedication and devotion is to their fellow man and their communities. So I'm honored to be a part of that, and we stand humbly before you, all of you across the country, and determined to serve you and to be worthy of the service and protection that you provide our communities every day. I thank my colleagues for allowing me to address you today. I thank you for being here. And I will turn the microphone over to Chairwoman McClain at this point. Thank you, ma'am, for allowing me to speak.
Again, our thoughts, prayers go out to the families of the fallen officers, but also let's not forget about the officers that put on the uniform now and also in the past. Let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And the next time you're walking down the street, say thank you. An act of kindness goes a long way for these men and women who keep our community safe every day. So thank you to the folks that served before us, and thank you to the folks that are serving with us. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.